it away, Tom.
Friends, and enemies, and everybody in between, in-laws and outlaws. It's great to be back. It is a great time to be a Packers fan. It's an exciting time. There's a lot of talk going on. It was a great win against Dallas last week, and now we head back to kind of, the elephant in the room. I mean, it's kind of what you wanted to face at the end of the year to get that monkey off your back, going to Seattle for the NFC Championship.
My dream path to the Super Bowl would have been beating Dallas, beating Seattle, and then beating Denver just to slay some of the old villains of the day. But the crown jewel, the one that would be the sweetest, is to beat Seattle. And hell, why not make it in Seattle?
Yep.
That's where we're headed after a season where the Packers went 9-0 at home, better than they did in 2011. They're heading out to the toughest stadium in the NFL to try to advance to the Super Bowl.
There's a lot of talk about going into this game. What has changed from that first week? What is the same? What has changed for better and what has changed for worse? Because obviously we lost, but Rodgers was at 100% then. He's not so much. And there's so much to talk about. We kind of have a nice little guest this week.
Big game. Had to bring in the big guns, folks. We are pleased to bring you our interview with Brian Carriveau, host of Railbird Central over at cheeseheadtv.com. We did have a little audio stuff where we had to go and redo our stuff. Brian's came through just fine, so if it sounds a little wonky at times, we're getting there.
Yeah.
But hey, dude's a pro. Enjoy what he had to say.
Have a listen.
So, Brian, what are you most excited about for this game on Sunday?
Oh, wow. Everything, I guess. Wanting to see what Aaron Rodgers is able to do, first of all, if he's any better, any more mobile than he was a week ago or 2 weeks ago. And I suppose to dovetail that, seeing if he learned his lesson from the last time, I'm sure he did, in trying to avoid Richard Rodgers, but how they try to attack him this time around. Do they go right at him? I suppose you probably don't go right at one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL a ton, but still, the game plan is going to change, so I'm really excited to see what the Packers have in store this week and how they're going to go about it.
I guess my next question, what are some of the things that you're most worried about as the Packers go into this game? Would you categorize Richard Sherman as one of the biggest fears you'd have as a fan going into Sunday?
I suppose that perhaps the Seattle secondary in general, between Sherman and their safeties, Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, these guys are all really good. Just look at what Cam Chancellor did last week with the pick six, and a guy who's there's a lot made this week about him being able to jump over and block field goals, and for as many field goals as the Packers have gotten blocked this year, that comes to the concern as well. So that's what scares me.
Looking back at that first game, the Seattle defense has played well throughout the season, but our offense has taken a lot of steps forward with our personnel. Guys like Cobb, obviously, and Devontae and Rodgers have really kind of stepped up their role. What do you think of that?
What was so nice last week against the Dallas Cowboys was able to see not just a third option emerge for the Packers, but third, fourth, fifth. All year long, the concern was, okay, you're not really worried about Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb. They're going to be fine all the time. But what if a team tries to game plan and take these guys away? Who's going to step up? And, Devontae Adams had at times during the season, but he was kind of up and down as a rookie, especially the past, I'd say the month of December. He kind of really went through a lull there. And then Devontae Adams coming up big in the divisional round playoff game against the Cowboys, 7 receptions, 117 yards. And then both Andrew Corliss and Richard Rodgers, Packers seem to have settled into a nice kind of timeshare there at the tight end position. They both caught touchdown passes last week. So, if the Packers can find out ways to get the balls to Adams and Rodgers and Corliss, I mean, no doubt about it, Cobb and Nelson are going to get their share, but they may have Richard Sherman on them. So for a third and fourth, fifth options to emerge, that would be huge for the Packers.
So, Brian, with the emergence of these other guys, would you now say that the Packers have enough legit weapons to create some favorable matchups with that Seattle secondary?
I think they do. Look at what Adams did this past Sunday. Aaron Rodgers really identified that Adams kind of had the weak link on him. It wasn't, they weren't going after Orlando Scandrick so much in the Cowboys secondary. I even forget the name of the corner that was guarding Adams, but I mean, they identified this guy is not quite up to par as the rest of them. So we're going to go to Adams, who we think has the best matchup capability. And I think it'll be the same way against Seattle. I mean, they're not going to go away from Richard Sherman entirely this time. But I think, still, you're going to look for the guys who aren't Richard Sherman more often than not.
Turning to the ground game, I personally think Eddie is going to be a huge factor in this game for controlling the clock and opening up some of those passing windows for Rodgers. What do you know about this knee injury, and what are you looking for him to do in this game against Seattle?
Mike McCarthy just kind of said very little on the topic. It was more precautionary, it sounds, than anything. Just that his knee was sore, and he kind of took him out of practice just to be like, we're not going to risk this. We're not going to let this get any worse. I don't think Eddie Lacy's going to be limited at all. I doubt it, especially if they're allowing him to rest from now until Sunday. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? Could be saying that the Packers aren't letting on. It's worse than they think. But, Mike McCarthy says he's going to go Sunday. So, but anyway, I think it'll be obviously important for the Packers to get the ground game going. It really has been good the past, really since about mid-season or so. Eddie Lacy has now gained at least 100 yards from scrimmage in 10 consecutive games. That's both rushing and receiving, but that's a Packers franchise record, so really impressive. I did another interview earlier today, and they asked me, where do I think the Packers have the advantage in this game? And it took me a while to think, where do the Packers really have an advantage? I think it's between you compare the two offensive lines. I think the Packers' offensive line is much better than Seattle's, and there's a clear advantage there. And those are going to be the guys opening up holes for Eddie Lacy on Sunday.
Yeah, good call on that. And Seattle's center got hurt in that last game against Carolina. Have you had a chance to take a look at their injury report at all?
I have not really done much of that yet. I know that, their center, Max Unger, is one of the better centers in the NFL. So if he's at less than 100%, that's definitely not very good for Seahawks.
So there was some talk about potentially the Cowboys doing a bit more blitzing than you would have imagined, what with Rodgers being hobbled.
I didn't hear anything about that.
No, that was Packers news of the day. I wish I had your sound bites, Brian. Do you think, Rodgers was pretty comfortable in that pocket. Do you think they maybe or do you think the Seahawks are going to try to make him a bit more uncomfortable in there?
Yeah, you know what? It really surprised me, not just the Dallas game, but the second half of the Detroit game, too, after Rodgers came back, that these teams did not put more pressure on him because, he is hobbled. And if I were an opponent, I know teams in the past have gotten burned when you blitz Aaron Rodgers. He's been that good. But, that's been a healthy Aaron Rodgers. This was a guy who now can't move. Force him to either, make plays on the move, which he can't, or perhaps you're getting in and putting some hits on him and see how he feels then, which may not be very good. So I was surprised that, the Cowboys and the Lions didn't bring more pressure. And I think that maybe the Seahawks may, but they're also a team that's pretty good at rushing the quarterback with just their front four. So maybe they just try that first. And, hey, if it's working, if they are getting pressure, then they don't need to bring any blitzers. So it depends how effective they are, perhaps.
So are you pretty confident in our O-line then going into this game?
Yeah, like I said before, that seems to me the one clear-cut place where the Packers have an advantage is our offensive line versus the Seattle's offensive line, who isn't bad. I mean, obviously, the Seahawks have the number one rushing offense in the NFL for a reason. I mean, Marshawn Lynch and Russell Wilson have a big part to do with that. But, I think the Packers, boy, they've been together. It was Brian Bulaga got hurt in week one there against the Seahawks, and they missed him for the rest of week one, all of week two. But since that point, it's been the same starting five for the next 15 games, and you can tell it's just the continuity there that they've gained since that time has been fantastic. Josh Sitton, arguably one of the best guards in the NFL. David Bakhtiari and T.J. Lang are alternates for the Pro Bowl this year. Brian Bulaga and Corey Linsley received votes in the All-Pro voting. So people have realized this Packers offensive line's pretty good, and I think they'll do a good job Sunday.
Well, so I hate to do a bit of muckraking or kind of after-the-fact criticism, especially when Tommy and I predicted the same thing, but basically we thought that the Packers would win that Week 1 matchup in Seattle. I'm kind of having a hard time remembering why I was so optimistic back then, but you had predicted that the Packers would go in and win as well. Do you kind of remember what you were thinking on that?
You know what? I was the same way. I make a prediction every week, and back during Week 1, I predicted the Packers were going to win, and it does look foolish now. I'm not sure what I was thinking either. Perhaps, at the time, thinking maybe these rookies would be more ready than they were in Week 1, and they ended up outside of Corey Linsley, who played well. I mean, Devontae Adams hardly played it in Week 1. But, him and Richard Rodgers, Clint Dix, their roles have only grown since that time. So I feel a lot more confident now that the Packers can hang with this team. But, yeah, I'm at a loss myself, wondering what was I thinking. Perhaps I thought that the greatness of Aaron Rodgers and Jordy Nelson and Eddie Lacy would overcome all that. But, I mean, the struggles were a lot on the Packers' defensive side of the football in that first game, too. They went with that 4-3 defense that went for early in the season. Now it's been scrapped totally. You haven't heard about that in months. Right. So some problems there, too.
Looking back at that Week 1 matchup against Seattle and some of the troubles we had with our defense, what has changed over the course of the year that you're looking to with this matchup here in the playoffs?
Oh, so much has changed. Of course, so much has been made of Clay Matthews' move to inside linebacker, not a full-time move by any means, but, I mean, the Packers' defense has just, been so much better as a result, particularly the run defense. In the past 3 games, the Packers have also really cut back on Julius Pepper's playing time. Weeks 1 through 15, he was playing at least 50 snaps a game. Now he's playing 30-some, and what the Packers are doing are keeping him fresh, and it's worked. He's got, 3 sacks in the past 3 games, 3 forced fumbles in the past 3 games. So Julius Peppers is being more of a wrecking ball out there. So Clinton Dix has become a full-time player, which has also allowed Micah Hyde to settle in at a slot cornerback position where he's more comfortable than he is at safety. And that's, paid dividends for both players. So much is different than it was early in the year. And I do think the Packers stand a better chance of winning this time around.
So I loved that breakdown that you did about Julius's snap count and the way it's fluctuated over the season. He looked really lost in that Week 1 game, but he's really kind of found himself in this defense, since then.
Yeah, I think a lot had to do at the time, just Game 1, first regular season game in the Packers uniform. He wasn't really comfortable yet, and like I said, they were going with that 4-3 defense, and yeah, he didn't look good in space, and he wasn't alone. I mean, A.J. Hawk and Brad Jones were lost out there as well. And those guys were not good fits for that 4-3 defense they were running. So it's a good thing the Packers have changed. But, yeah, so much has changed since that time.
Brian, what have you seen out of Sam Barrington?
Up and down. I think people are so happy to see Sam Barrington because he's better than the alternative. No doubt about it. He's a lot better than A.J. Hawk. He's a lot better than Brad Jones. However, Sam Barrington still has been prone to mistakes. And he's a young player. He's practically a rookie. He barely played last season. He ended up getting put on injured reserve. So this is really his first year in the NFL, more or less. He has some poor run fits once in a while. You can tell he's definitely the one strength A.J. Hawk has is his communication. He was always the guy who received the play calls, and you see him lining up the defensive lineman ahead of him. And Sam Barrington just isn't there yet. He doesn't have that years of knowledge and things like that behind him. So I think there's a lot of potential there. And I think he is better than A.J. Hawk and Brad Jones, but I just worry sometimes that he's going to be the fault at some point that the Packers defense, gives up a big play.
All right, I'm going to try to get through this next one without stuttering all over the place. Here we go. Which similarly surnamed quarterback tight end tandem will have more success this Sunday? The Wilsons or the Rodgers?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a tongue twister as well. First to guess, I would say the Seahawks and their duo there, just because it's been so inconsistent, I guess, with Richard Rodgers. One game he'll have a good game like he did last week, he catch a touchdown, and the next game he'll be absent or whatever. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing if guys like Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb and Devontae Adams are all doing the damage. But it just seems like it might be a little more consistent with a guy like Russell Wilson. And is it Luke Wilson, I believe, who's been there a few years as well. So I would go with that, but nothing would surprise me.
Focusing on Russell Wilson now, a lot of people are saying we have to keep him in the pocket and not allow him to pick up those first downs with his legs, a la Colin Kaepernick, our first matchup with him. What are we going to have to do to limit his mobility?
I think one thing they might do is have Clay Matthews be a spy on Russell Wilson, perhaps not all the time and not every down. But I think there's going to be moments where Clay Matthews' job is to simply read Russell Wilson. And if he, drops back and passes, he might, blitz him, or he's ready to mirror him at a moment's notice, whether he scrambles left or right. So that's one way. And then, when he's not, whoever is at, rushing on the outsides at the end, Julius Peppers, whether it be Julius Peppers, Clay Matthews, Mike Neal, Nick Perry, they're going to have to contain Russell Wilson to the pocket. And, it goes a lot. You see Clay Matthews get caught out of position sometimes because he's going 110 miles an hour and he's, rushing too fast for his own good. You got to be a little bit more under control, I think, with Russell Wilson in the pocket and kind of, not hurt yourself.
Yeah, back in that Week 1 matchup, you saw Clay just definitely playing a little too aggressively, taking himself out of plays in his pursuit. But now since he's moved to inside linebacker, do you think he's in a better position to spy on Russell Wilson?
Yeah, I think when you use a spy, it's typically at that inside linebacker position where you just kind of read and things like that. Not that there isn't a role for, those outside rushers as well. And we've seen Clay Matthews in playoff games in the past too, kind of get burned by Colin Kaepernick. And that's kind of when a team is running the read option, that defensive end, outside rusher is so important. His job there in containing that and trying to rush, the quarterback or the running back, who's going to get the ball. So that's another thing to think about, and it's not going to be easy for the Packers to defend.
Yeah, and it really helps that a couple of those other guys have kind of been coming on a bit stronger as the season's gone on. You had that other article that you wrote last week about Dayton Jones and Nick Perry. You've been killing it lately. What do you have to say about those guys?
Yeah, that's been huge for the Packers, especially this past Sunday against the Cowboys. I mean, look at Dayton Jones. He had the big fumble recovery. He had a sack, and he had the blocked kick, the field goal, which, I mean, wasn't like he really batted the thing, but enough to make it there. And then Nick Perry gets in 2 sacks, credited with 1.5, I think. But, I mean, these are the guys who, this is why you spent first-round draft picks on them, and up until this point, you haven't gotten first-round dividends, I guess, on these guys. They've been battling injuries over the course of their career. Nick Perry's had 2 broken bones, and Dayton Jones he's sprained this ankle and re-sprained it about 4 times, I think. So maybe these guys are just getting healthy at the right time now, and maybe it's time for them to step up. I mean, if Dayton Jones and Nick Perry are coming up with big games on Sunday, that's going to bode well for the Packers because, guys like Aaron Rodgers and Jordy Nelson, those guys are you can bet on them having good games. The guys you haven't been able to bet on have been, the Nick Perrys and Dayton Jones. So if they do well, Packers have a chance of doing well.
Looking at the roster as a whole over this past season, who, young guys or veterans, has maybe pleasantly surprised you with performing better you thought they would, and who maybe took a step back or maybe kind of underachieved on this team?
I'm trying to think about surprise here. I could go with Corey Linsley saying, I guess I never thought he'd be as good as he has been this year, in which he's really performed at a Pro Bowl level, I would say, even though he wasn't named to the Pro Bowl. And, part of that is just so much that it's based on name recognition anyway, so maybe he did deserve it and just didn't get voted in by fans who don't know him anyway, things like that. So he's been so good for the Packers this season. To step in from week 1 and basically not miss a beat. Yeah, there's been a snap or 2 where Aaron Rodgers hasn't really been ready. But I mean, my goodness, I expected that happening more with a rookie starting 16 games. Guys who kind of disappointed. I thought maybe tight end Brandon Bostic would have a bigger impact this year than what he did. He was kind of the guy always compared to Jermichael Finley, the guy who could stretch the field, and he's barely seen the field on offense. And maybe by the same token, running back DeJuan Harris as well, a guy who kind of did have a role in the past for the Packers, and it's been diminished. He was kind of the Packers' kick returner all season long, and just in the past 2 games, now he's been on the inactive list. He's not even active and out there at all. So kind of 2 minor disappointments there, I suppose.
Well, Brian, on Wednesday, you had tweeted out that the last 7 NFC championships were decided by 7 points or less. Are you thinking this Sunday is going to be a close one, too?
Yeah, I really do. I see this being a very close game. I see it being perhaps a low-scoring game. We know the Seahawks defense is really good, and the Packers defense, when they're on, they can be pretty good. So I think it's close. And I think it's low-scoring, both of those things.
Now, this isn't going to be going online until after your morning show has aired, so you're not going to spoil anything, but do you have a score in mind?
Well, certainly don't wait on my behalf if you are, but because I've already been asked on other interviews my prediction. But I am going, perhaps against my better judgment, and I have not been afraid to pick against the Packers in the past. But I'm going with the Packers. I think it's, like I said, low scoring. I got them winning 24-21. I just wrote a post today, a dozen reasons the Packers are better equipped to beat the Seahawks than they were in Week 1. And I think when you look at all these things, and just we've talked about almost all of them throughout the course of the interview, whether it's, Clay Matthews at inside linebacker and Julius Peppers being fresh and the Packers offensive line, all this continuity, et cetera, et cetera. I'm finding reasons that I really like the Packers to win. I know it's not going to be easy by any means, but yeah, I'm going with the Packers.
Oh, very cool. Well, Brian, we sure do appreciate you coming on the show like this. Between your 3 Cheesehead TV podcasts every week, your Bart Winkler phone calls, numerous other interviews, you talk about the Packers quite a bit. I guess I'm kind of curious, how did you get into talking about the Packers professionally?
I think a lot of it was timing, perhaps, and this is kind of interesting. And I started a blog in 2005. I actually lived in Green Bay at the time, and I was a teacher, so I had my summers off. And what I would do is during the summer, go to Packers practice and write my own reports, my own reactions to what's going on. And this is before anybody knew what a blog even was. Even the mainstream media outlets, the Green Bay Press Gazette, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, they were stuck in the old times yet of just simply, putting out a morning paper every day, and not how it is now where you got to get the most up-to-date information. I was doing that before anybody else was. And I think that kind of brought a lot of attention. I suppose it helps that I had a journalism background, but I think that really helped that I was kind of ahead of the curve there a little bit, and that's kind of snowballed from there.
That's great. And about how many episodes of Railbird Central now?
Yeah, we're nearing the 500th episode. I'm really kind of excited about that. I think we're on 483 right now. So I'm really, it's been in the back of my mind. I got to get a good guest for the 500th episode. We had Jerry Kramer on for the 400th, so somehow I got to top that. I don't know if I can.
Well, relatively then, we just started. Any advice for us newbies?
Just stick with it, guys. I think it's really cool. I don't think there's many people out there who are doing what you guys are doing right now, kind of the video podcast. We kind of dabble in video a little bit at Cheesehead TV, but we don't really post it to YouTube. I guess we use a different platform. So you got that going for you, and just keep it up. So the location can't be better, live from Stadium Drive.
Well, thank you so much, Brian. Appreciate you joining us, and you come on back anytime.
Big thanks, Brian.
Sounds good, guys. Go Pack, go.
Once again, we'd love to thank Brian Carriveau for getting on and chatting with us. Cool dude. Check him out Monday, Wednesday, Friday, cheeseheadtv.com for his Railbird Central podcast. He writes during the week. Killer stuff.
What a cool way to go about it. What he talked about his history of, just going to those practices during the summer and just staking his own claim, and then you saw what happens there. It's a lot of fun, and just a cool guy, great interview, very smart dude, and thank you, Brian. That was a lot of fun.
So we'll touch back on some of that stuff, but basically we're gonna get old school and go back to our own Week 1 performance where we started with the offense.
Oh, no.
We're not going to break it down by position like we did back
with
then.
that fancy full screen.
But let's start with the man who runs it. That's Aaron Rodgers. Still hurting a bit. I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's anything new on this. No breaking news there.
No, as you would expect. It's pretty tight-lipped. They're not saying much either way, whether it's hobbling too much. He's going to go through. He's going to play, as was the story last week. It's just how much can he do? And we saw he was obviously severely limited. He's dangerous as hell in the pocket, and he was turned into a purely pocket passer. Obviously, that one play, specifically the Richard Rodgers touchdown, where you saw him going for a second. He was thinking about gunning, and he said it himself, I kind of, obviously, in the past, I would have ran up, but he realized He pulled up and threaded that needle beautifully. But it's a whole game changer, and what does that do against that Seattle defense?
Well, you didn't see the Cowboys bringing any extra blitzes against Rodgers. You know, Rodgers is so good against the blitz. But does I like, you know, like Brian said, that front four is so good that they really don't need to bring extra guys, and that helps them in the pass game because they can drop those extra people back.
So well balanced.
Yeah, man, it's a heck of a defense.
Reason for optimism is, you know, which has been a lot of the talk, especially in recent weeks, because it seems like there's been a lot of accolades. There was a great article on Grantland profiling our offensive line, but they've just, you know, come together so much. It's knock on wood. We've been able to stay healthy up there, which hasn't always been the case, but Bakhtiari just really making giant strides in this second year. And we know about Lang and Sitton, and Balag has been able to stay upright. And then Lindsey, as it was kind of talked about with Brian, but I feel you get the mood around here. People are saying throughout the week, I'm starting to feel more optimistic. That's not necessarily nationally the mood, but around a lot of people are there's a lot of things, and you know, you could just say, oh, you're just blind optimism. But when you look at those matchups, I mean, our front five tough guys. I mean, look what we were able to do against the Lions. You know, at the end of the year, I mean, that is formidable. I mean, they got theirs a little bit, but really, with Rodgers hobbled, we were able to walk out of there against a very, very good front four.
Well, Mike McCarthy came out and said that he thinks the O-line is the biggest key to the Packers' success this season. I will give it that. It comes so much down to the trenches where the Packers have, you know, been accused of being soft or just whatever, like, you know, over the couple of years. And it's a dominant O-line is huge. However, I think we both kind of agree the key to the Packers' offense here is, one, Eddie Lacy.
Is it Edward or Edwin?
I really hope it's Edwin.
Yeah,
just,
so do I.
I
work with an Edwin, and I think that's pretty sweet, and it's just a really cool name. But no, man, I'll completely agree. I mean, we know how important Rodgers is, but I've kind of said in talking about this game throughout this week that almost the more important player this week is Eddie, because control the game clock, which everybody's talking about, is those long methodical drives and lots of first downs and keeping Russell Wilson off the field and allowing us to put the points on the boards and limiting their points on the board, because everybody knows we're not going to be able to put up the 40 bomb, you know, or the, you know, massive amount of points that we are, but and then opening up those passing lanes, making them commit to respecting Eddie and his running, and then him just setting a physical presence. Everybody's like, Seahawks are so damn tough and they'll knock you around. If you can see Eddie bopping some of those guys like he does and knocking some guys down, bouncing off them like the bowling ball, that's just going to just spread throughout the whole team. It's going to be infectious. That kind of, it's going to shut up their crowd. It's going to get our guys both on the offense and defense jacked, and it's just going to create so much more opportunities for us. Like it's Eddie. This is where he needs. This is like the pinnacle. This is the point of the season where he needs to shine. I think you need to, even if the majority of the snaps are 60 to 40 to run, and that's the way it has to be to win the game, I'm not afraid of that.
Well, and it's not as if Seahawks have like the D-line. I mean, they had some bad injuries on that D-line this year. Carolina had 132 yards on the ground against them. Jonathan Stewart alone had 70 yards on 12 carries. 12 or 13. It was like a 5.4 yard per carry average.
It's impressive.
Dude.
Against any team, but especially against that Seattle team.
Big time. So, I mean, they looked beatable, frankly. I did you get a chance to watch that game?
I did, and that's what everybody said. If Cam would have kind of made a couple of those throws more, and maybe they would have made a couple more catches. I mean, they weren't out of that game. They weren't completely outclassed. They, you know, there was chances there. Obviously, everybody kind of had an idea that Seattle really had to lay an egg. But, again, it's a reason for optimism. These guys are not invincible. And whereas they've maintained being pretty great all year, I know they started a little slow too, but you look at our rise just throughout the year and who has stepped in and on both sides of the ball, who has been able to start to contribute and how it's been diversified, and these key players and role players even, you know, whether you say coming off the bench, you know, if you want to talk about kind of a sixth man in basketball terms or something, you know, it's
your Tony Kukoc out there.
Yeah.
Dude, a lot of people have kind of stepped up. They've answered the call as the games have gotten bigger. Devontae, Richard Rodgers. I mean, those dudes. Richard Rodgers played like fucking hell in week 1.
Yeah.
And now look at him. I'm not that you can count on it game in, game out, but still, he showed a lot since then. Devontae, same thing. You've got John Kuhn playing a whole lot more than he was early on. He barely played at all early in the season. This last game, it was 31 snaps, a season high.
And I will say I'm was the first one to say it these last couple of years. It's been like, especially knowing Ted, like, is John Kuhn, is that an expendable roster spot? Is he going to stick around? What's his worth? The mission of the fullback role in the league, and what does he really do? And we've talked about his intangibles, but his pass blocking, which he's kind of the highest rated pass blocker, as far as amongst tight ends or out of the backfield amongst our backs, his communication, his knowledge of the offense, and, still his ability to catch a ball or two and run a ball or two up. I mean, we saw it again. It's amazing how he just sometimes still just manages to pick up that first down when you need it most, and he's right there, or get that key block, as was last year and this year. I mean, hey, I'm already say no matter what happens next week, bring him back next year.
Hey, cool.
Yeah.
We're not talking about next year, though.
No.
Come on, man.
I'm sorry. It was just about Kuhn, man.
All right. I love Kuhn. I think he's done some. That's crazy, man. I was right there with you. In Ted, we trust.
IT.
So that would be our offense, isn't it? You got anything else on the offense?
No, I mean, I think both teams know what we have. I mean, yes, things have changed because everybody's looking back at that first week, but
yeah,
I think the prevailing message here is we have no reason to be scared.
Well, no team this season, no team put up more than 40 points on the Seahawks this season. The most anybody scored, is that right? Shit, it's something like that.
Or was it they hadn't put up?
Oh, they hadn't put up 40 points all year.
But you were looking at some of the matchups that they ended up losing, and it's kind of an interesting tale of the tape about what kind of happened in those Seahawks losses.
Well, it only took there were five games that were competitive, 4 that the Seahawks lost. When teams scored 24 points or more against Seattle, all but one of them won that game. The only one who didn't was Oakland, but otherwise San Diego, Dallas, St. Louis, and no.
Was
Shoot. Oh well, some other. Oh, Kansas City. Bless your heart. Teams that beat them in different ways. Phillip Rivers just kind of dink and dunked them to death in San Diego a week after they kicked our ass, and then Dallas beat them with that power run game. So I mean, they are. I don't know. People talk about how they're better than last year. The Seattle's players are talking so much trash about how great they are. I thought that they were more solid last year.
Yeah, I will agree. And just the trajectory of how it went and seeing vulnerabilities and knowing the more time that develops, and you can see, like you said, with Phillip Rivers having that game plan that was effective and being able to game plan and knowing their personnel and knowing their schemes. Randall Cobb was on Jim Rome this week, and, as he kind of stated, it's not that Seattle's defense does anything super special or super complicated. It's pretty straightforward what they do. They just do it extremely well.
Yep.
We have an offense that does things extremely well, so it's that chess match that everybody's talking about, looking forward to a great defense versus a great offense.
But, on the other side of it, is their offense so good that, does our offense need to do that much to stay out in front of them? I guess let's look when the ball is in the other court. When Seattle's got the ball, do you feel good about our defense? I mean, they missed 16 or 18 tackles in that week 1 game. But, look what's changed. That was Brad Jones was the worst defender in that game. A.J. Hawk back on his feet.
Dix was a baby.
Yeah.
Barrington, guys like Barrington weren't coming up. Clay on the outside still. Julius
was just man. He was just finding out how to fit on this new team, new style of defense, and I thought actually Seattle schemed really well at Julius in particular. But again, that's so long ago. So much has changed for this Packers defense, whereas Seahawks offense, I mean, like they just yeah, they had never scored more than 38 points this year. They only got above 30 like 4 or 5 times. I mean,
it's ball control and great defense. So look at the profile of that, assessing your opponent and what Seattle does. They obviously are leaders in rushing, both Russell Wilson out of the QB position and Marshawn Lynch. They don't really pass it too much, but they're effective when they are. Is what's kind of been said is, Russell Wilson's a pretty damn good passer. He just doesn't do it a lot, And obviously they don't have a lot of the targets there, and a lot of that feeds off a successful run game that they have. But, again, matchup, how does that team that does what they do so well, and they're going to run it, and they're going to run it, and they have a hell of a back, and even some of their backups behind Lynch perform quite well.
mm-hmm.
You can't necessarily, we're built to stop the run, but we've come to be able to do that. We have not faced a back like that. We faced DeMarco Murray. We're reasonably successful. We didn't allow him to take the game over, but he got his.
Yeah.
And with Lynch, he's going to get some of his. It's just, can you contain him?
Well, their offensive line, as Brian pointed out, is, that is one area where the Packers have an advantage. Meaning Seattle's offensive line is not that great. It's part of why you see Russell Wilson having to drop back and scramble like a thing that I don't like. Yeah. So I think I'm so pumped to see our D-line against that O-line this week.
Yeah.
Mike Daniels is just like, I sometimes try not to swear on this show, but he's a fucking beast, man.
Yeah. Well, you got to read his quote, man, because
dude,
got some good ones, but Mike Daniels, done.
Mike Daniels, we'll throw this one in. Mike Daniels was asked if this Packers team, if he was getting complacent, if he felt that if they were so proud about what they'd already accomplished this year.
He said, man,
I ain't won shit. Love it. He is hungry.
Daniels.
He is hungry for Seahawks this week, I guess. That's on the fucking menu. Mike Diesel. But, Nick Perry getting involved. Daytone getting involved. Julius, Brian had that piece about how they, limited his snap count we talked about. That's amazing. That's what they needed to do. He turns 35 on game day, man. It's pretty nuts.
That's wild.
It's nuts. But dude is hungry too. This is a beastly defense.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of talk about Julius and his presence, and we all know about, him as a playoff captain his first year and how Rodgers has talked about him this year. But obviously at this stage in his career, he knows how important this is and how rare this opportunity is. And talk about some of the speeches he's made and his inspiration, how guys look to him. When you see that look on that face, it's game time. And these young guys who... they talk about a benefit of these young guys who are so hungry and they don't realize the importance and they just come and play hard and want to prove. But having Julius in there and knowing what he's been through, and he's been a great player who's maybe just been in situations where he hasn't had the opportunity to get far, and he knows he has to seize the moment. And you would hope his play elevates to his aspirations at this point. And you've kind of seen it. And you talked about with his less snaps, but the clutch plays. DeMarco was running for daylight, and he got that DeMarco fumble.
That was so big.
It's game-changing plays that, as everybody said, that's what you paid him for, to make the big game-changing plays. And he has come through.
All year.
We love Julius.
Fuck, I was really hoping
Sorry.
we were going to do that.
Julius.
Well, Julius has been exactly what we thought we'd picked up.
God, Rodgers is a funny son of a bitch.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Defense. Anybody else you want to holler about?
Well, we touched on a
Tremont
little
didn't have a great game.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that. It seems like he's really kind of...
he's usually so good in the playoffs,
yes.
though.
With the
Atlanta.
clutch plays,
Yeah.
getting a pick or something, or, just breaking those things up. And obviously the onus is more on our run defense. You cannot discount, obviously settling for mediocre pass defense. But I don't know. Another topic that is coming to it is keeping Wilson in the pocket, keeping him from picking up, because he excels at that, extending plays, giving himself time, being able to throw in the run, and picking up those first downs where you're so close, but then he just makes you so far.
He had one play against Carolina that he was like already down and tried to throw it, and they called him for intentional grounding. But it was just like it's like against everything in his being to not take a sack.
Yeah.
Which is why I think.
And you have to be so sharp.
Yeah. Oh, dude, when he actually like makes the throws, it's the one where he just kind of twinkles back and then ends up throwing it away.
Yep.
It's like, dude, quit tiring out our dudes.
Yeah, for real.
But I think there just aren't that many weapons. You know, last time the big talk going into week 1 was, what are the Packers going to do about their old buddy Percy Harvin? And long gone.
I told Percy I'd do this. But yes, now he's gone. And okay, Doug Baldwin, number 1. Again, you would rather take the chances of Wilson beating you from the pocket with their core wide receivers.
Yeah. Curse.
Yes.
And then
The
Luke Wilson, the tight end. I mean, I do worry about that guy. He did look like he would do some damage.
And we know we've had some struggles against some tight ends.
But hey, if they get Devon House back and he actually plays this week, maybe he factors in. I don't know, man. I just feel fucking good about this game. Went back and watched week 1 or our week 1 episode where we both predicted victories, and man, for real, I don't know where I thought they were gonna outdo the Seahawks, especially in that game. Like I had to check, but 9 out of the last 11 NFL kickoff games have been won by the home team.
Yep. Well, you think back right here in our backyard
Oh,
when
yeah.
we played the Saints after
What that was like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did we have any doubt? I mean, the Saints had a great team at that point. That's why they put us against the playoffs. But it's that devil's advocate, or did we really? Obviously, your allegiance is one way, but
Yeah. Well, dude, I don't know. I'm telling you, this Packers team is hungrier than Seattle.
yeah.
I feel
That's
it,
what
man.
that was the other thing I was going to say. Like, there is a certain, I don't want to say there's nothing to lose, because that kind of comes in, a different mentality what I'm talking about, but like, nobody's betting on us. The spread has only increased. The history would say that obviously it favors the Seahawks, but man, you want
I
to
have
talk
a
about
point on
bulletin
that.
board material.
Well, the last 4 NFC Championship winners were the road teams. 4 in a row. Starting with GB.
yeah. Wow. Which may go down at least the greatest Packers-Bears game in history, but
Yeah, that was
that
huge.
was just so fun.
Yeah, that was a heck of a time.
But anyway.
Yeah. Well,
But I mean, I do like the feeling mentality that it's. I mean, there's a lot of, who knows what Mike says to these guys behind closed doors, and you talk about bulletin board material, you talk about, AMP, and you listen to a lot to what the players are trying to catch the mood, see what these guys were, trying to bring to the table, and you got some of that. But you just like the position that you're in, because I mean, yeah, going back to the Buffalo game, I mean, it was kind of an afterthought, and thought you had it in the bag, and then obviously you come out there and perform, and now being on the other side of that table, kind of like it. And
Yeah.
again, 2010, complete road journey, kind of liked it.
nobody's underdog.
Yeah.
It's wild though, because Seattle is they're trying to put forth a front of just the utmost confidence. It's nuts, man. I mean, have you ever seen a team that was just like this outspoken all around? I mean, like it's part of why I don't really like Pete Carroll, just because it's like, I don't know. Sometimes there's some funny shit, but other times it's just like, man, you're talking about how you're the best defense ever.
Yeah.
There's dudes, but I don't think so.
Tommy rolls all, exactly. I mean, I don't know. I mean, look at the Patriot way and just talk about that sustained success. And maybe Seattle will have sustained success for a long time, but talk about what Belichick rules, and there's certain reasons why he does what he does, and even the Packers at that point. But obviously there's been sustained success. To look at someone outside on the other side of the conference about their sustained success, and Belichick does not let any of that shit fly as far as, talking out loud or saying much anything. I mean, it's basically zip-lipped, and just get the feeling that, the people who talk the most, once things start going slow and you keep talking, it's people enjoy talking while you're winning, but as soon as you start losing, Rex Ryan, perfect example.
Yeah.
I mean, how quick does that shit fade when you talk big but you can't back it up? And
It's
who knows if that'll happen? I'm
Yeah.
just saying I would much rather play it the Packer way or the Maroon Patriot way than a Pete Carroll way.
I mean, like I said, some of it's pretty it's so outrageous that it is kind of funny. Richard Sherman on Cam Chancellor said, said he's a freaking monster.
He devours.
He damages people's souls. Like, okay, I'll give you that. That's pretty ridiculous to say. But I mean, like, I kind of wondered, since the Packers aren't that kind of team, how would they handle, how would they react to some of that stuff? I mean, Seattle's a team that puts these messages out. They try to get in your head,
Talking shit on the
verbally
field.
and with their actions, big time, man. And Cam Chancellor was like the player of the game last Saturday. I mean, Russell Wilson played very well too, but Cam Chancellor jumping the the blocking unit on those field goal attempts was outrageous. I've never seen anything like that. And then, like, with the pick six and stuff, I mean, like, I just wondered, especially since the Packers have been so poor blocking on special teams, that now they know they're going into that. So our man Dayton Jones on the fifth quarter show, they asked him about Cam Chancellor because Dayton had himself something of a little block.
Technically, yes.
Technically, give it to him. Mark it. He was saying, like, it's addicting. He wants to be the Packer with the most field goal blocks in Packer history. And they asked him if he would be able to jump over a line like that. And I'm just thinking, like, man, even just somebody bringing that up on the team that I'm about to face, I think that would really kind of fuck with me. And not Dayton. It was just, yeah, I could probably do that. I'm pretty athletic. And it's just, it's the throughout it all, there was a sense of, we're acknowledging that this is a good team, but we're not afraid of them. We respect them, we revere them, but
More in the vein of talking shit, Devontae kind of had his comment.
oh yeah, and Devontae was talking about how if Richard Sherman starts talking shit with him,
Which he's well known to do.
yeah, he likes it. He likes when people do that, so he can make plays and shut them up.
And shut that crowd up.
Yeah, those fucking.
Which that is another thing. If you can start a little quick and build a little momentum and take a little air out of that crowd, I mean, that's pays dividends in so many different ways. It's it's crucial to just start quick and start on the right foot, because obviously people said you have to play mistake-free football in the playoffs, and obviously in this situation in particular. But we can kind of
yeah.
make something happen our way. I just feel good.
Well, when Mike McCarthy started in Green Bay, he said the biggest problem his team was going to have was handling success. And when I look at a team that won a Super Bowl and still has to talk that much shit, that is a pervasive, like, decades-old losing mentality in that franchise. And I mean, it's a front, man.
Yeah.
It's a front. If things start to get away from them, their fans, I mean, like, I think you can take them out of the game.
The most fickle fans in football.
For real.
You hear that, Seattle? You're the most fickle fans in football. Sorry. Just had to say it.
You're not sorry.
No, I'm not.
So, you over-caffeinated fucks, get ready to fucking shut up and shit. I just wanted to call them over-caffeinated. I saw that this week, and I thought that was pretty funny.
I like that.
Anyway, Mike McCarthy, not talking shit, but just a good old Pittsburgh macho in the strongest sense, the Midwestern bravado or whatever. Where he's immediately after the Dallas game, they asked him about next week, and he said, "I'm looking forward to going back up to Seattle, and I'm looking forward to winning the NFC Championship." And it wasn't boastful. It wasn't like he grabbed his nuts.
But it's
after
that classic Mike that we love, the matter of fact, that you wouldn't want him to say anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously he's not going to be like looking forward to a good game. I mean, you could say that, but he's not going to, he's not going to back down. He's not going to be scared. He's the leader of the team. We love him. Why we love him? Because he's brings these guys week in and week out and gets them ready to play and doesn't mess around. And the players love him. But he's a disciplinarian. He's tough on them and he's tough on the other opponents. And Wouldn't have it any other way. Wouldn't have any other coach.
Especially not Pete Carroll.
Nope.
Fuck Pete Carroll.
Yep. Shoot.
Okay, I'm not ready to predict yet, but there's just a couple, like we mentioned with Brian, last 7 NFC Championships have been decided by 7 points or less. Seahawks haven't scored more than 38 points in a game. Let's get general and work our way there, Thomas. Who's going to win?
I'm not going to break our tradition of planning for a Packers win, but I do feel confident for a lot of reasons. Touching on it earlier, just where Eddie has come and knowing that we can grind out drives slowly but surely. I mean, there's a certain thing where, Rodgers just staying in the pocket. Obviously, you want his legs to be able to run and pick up first down, but if that's the game plan, if the line knows he's going to stay in the pocket, and the receivers know he's going to stay in the pocket, and Rodgers knows he's going to stay in the pocket, and your plays are tailored to that, these guys are pretty damn smart, and they have a pretty damn good game plan, and he can read shit pre-snap pretty damn well. And then you throw in just Eddie, how he's been playing. I know, obviously, with the knee, you sat out, but talking about that, it seems obviously precautionary. You know how much of a game is. You just want to give it rest.
Was it Mike throwing shade, or just just...
Well, we talked about
and mirror. I mean, but he's not that kind of guy though.
It was mentioned exactly. Is he is he minimalizing it, or is he maybe even maximizing it? I don't know. It's how much do you get into that, the mind game, the chess game? But
that's usually just not his thing, man. Maybe him just being honest is the biggest mind game he could play with Pete Carroll or something.
Yeah.
I don't know, because he's used to fucking with Harbaugh and all that bullshit.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
So basically, Eddie Lacy, which translates a little bit of that O-line, and then our run defense. I mean, because you have to limit Lynch. You limit Lynch.
Yeah.
You open up windows. You make Russell have to get to his arm, and it's what we have to do. A turnover.
I want it to rain shit in Seattle. I want this to be Marshawn's last game as a Seahawk. He's gonna do whatever he does, but they're not gonna win. And Marshawn will be gone. Russell Wilson's gonna have this insane contract next year that's gonna cripple them from getting any talent on offense. I mean, shoot. I seriously, I want this one to fucking hurt. And fuck Lance Easley. Fuck you. I don't fucking care about you.
Yeah.
Fuck that dude. You brought it on yourself, man.
Especially how he acted afterwards.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
He brought it upon himself.
If that call just happens and that's it, and he made a bad call, he's just an anonymous replacement ref.
Well, you disappear. You make yourself disappear.
Yeah.
The Steve Bartman thing. You just disappear off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
And just don't do anything. But he went on all the talk shows and did all the things. He booked, didn't he?
Oh, yeah. Making the right call or whatever the fuck. Man, I'm sure he's going through some serious shit. Wouldn't, wish that on my worst enemy, but...
don't act like you...
Yeah. When it's post-traumatic stress, when it's stress you chose and even fucking relished.
Accelerate and create and fan those flames.
Yeah.
Don't be looking for a ton of sympathy. Again, you don't, it's a serious thing or whatever, but don't act like it was, you were just completely barged in. People were knocking down your door. You went out there and were knocking down people's doors.
Right.
So
I want the Packers to kick their ass. I will settle for a close game. I'm thinking. I was thinking right around where Brian said he was 24-21. I will say. Fuck it. I'll say 27-24.
Okay. I mean, all these scores are going to be close because you don't see either team. Thank you. I kind of saw that glittering in my...
There we go.
That's what friends are for.
we thought about changing the name of the show to Love from Stadium Drive.
Love from Stadium Dove. I don't know. But no, I mean, from all the reasons we've talked about, obviously their offense isn't explosive enough that they're going to rack up those points. And we realize that we're not going to just waltz in there and do it. So it's going to be one of those kind of 20-point games. Oh, man.
Eddie's going to be fine.
26-20, Pack.
Peace. All right. By gum, by gosh, by golly, it's fucking nearly here, Packers fans. This Sunday, 2 o'clock, Lambeau time.
Where are we going to be? We got a little something special planned for this next Sunday for y'all fans, so we hope y'all enjoy. We're going to be over at the fine establishment known as the Green Bay Distillery, right by us, right by Lambeau Field. And
Mike McCarthy way.
Big shout out to Pickle, and it's...
He better be there.
Yeah.
I told him to be there. We will be there after the game, rain or shine. We still praise and whine. I can't believe it, gang. It's been a hell of a season, but let's get on the road. Let's fucking win this thing.
Yep, got a lot more to do.
I don't want to end this, man.
No.
I want to savor it.
Cherish it.
Well, fuck it. We got nothing to worry about except the defending champions.
No, let's feel good and feel loud and, just get out and enjoy it and just root your head off, and we got to feel pretty good. We have no reason to be scared.
That last episode of Tuesdays with Aaron, most recent one, was the funniest episode that there's been yet. It was a riot, and if that's an indication of the kind of headspace number 12's in, I think we're gonna win.
Yep. And on that note, I would like to say I am Tommy Burns for Matty Day.
I am Matty Day for Tommy Burns.
And we are live from Stadium
Drive.
Go Pack!
Freaking
Seattle!
Take 'em down!
Kill 'em!